Madison Square Garden and Penn Station are set for a major overhaul as part of a $7.5 billion redevelopment plan. It's one of the busiest and most iconic spots in the Big Apple. But with growing opposition, funding challenges, and ongoing legal fights, can this massive project actually happen? Let's take a closer look at what's really going on. The ambitious $7.5 billion proposal. Penn Station in NYC is about to get a makeover. It's been known for a long time that having narrow, dark hallways and old, broken-down equipment. The plan, which is worth an amazing $7.5 billion, calls for moving MSG and renovating the station completely. If this gets approved, it will not only change one of the busiest transit hubs in the world, but also a big part of Manhattan's cityscape. The move of the Garden, which is now on top of Penn Station, is a key part of this change. This famous arena has been a major part of New York City for decades, hosting concerts, games, and other events. But the arena's location has been a source of disagreement for a long time because it makes it harder to build and run the station. The location of the Garden makes it nearly impossible to modernize the station because its large size blocks off important areas and stops that needed expansions to fit the growing number of commuters. By moving MSG is pretty much necessary for any real progress to be made. According to the proposed redevelopment plan, a modern transportation hub should be rebuilt. This will make it much easier for people to get around. The new design focuses on efficiency, light, and accessibility to get rid of the dark, crowded areas that make Penn Station hard for millions of commuters every day. One of the most interesting things about this idea is the addition of a 450-foot-long train hall with a glass dome that will let natural light flood the area. The hall is not only a transportation hub, but also a work of art designed to make traveling better overall. Along with bigger train stations, the new design will also have better access to the tracks, more elevators, and more concourses. This is necessary to cut down on traffic, improve mobility, and make sure that level transitions are better. Since almost 600,000 people use Penn Station every day, these updates are really important for comfort. The area used to be a concrete jungle, but now there are parks and open spaces instead. Adding green spaces to the redesign gives it a more modern feel. With these improvements, the goal is to make a transit hub that looks good and works well too. But maybe the most important change is that MSG is no longer there. In its place, the plan calls for a green public park that'll be a peaceful haven in the middle of the city. The park would provide much-needed open space in an area known for having a lot of cities. This action shows how city planners are changing their priorities as they try and balance modern infrastructure with environmental concerns. Not only is fixing Penn Station part of this $7.5 billion project, but it's also about rethinking how the Big Apple can balance growth and livability. The proposal gives a new look at how to make New York City livelier and more connected by making room for natural light, improving the subway, and adding public parks right in the middle of the city. Madison Square Garden's reluctance. James Dolan's name is linked to MSG in the same way that events are linked to the venue. Dolan has a lot of personal stake in the area because he's the chairman of the company that owns MSG. Moving MSG isn't just a matter of logistics for him, it's a battle between tradition, emotion, and business sense. Moving the Garden is not only opposed because of these reasons, but also because of the complicated dynamics that have kept the arena where it is for decades. From a business standpoint, the Garden is a lot more than just a place to hold concerts and sports events. Because of its famous status and high-profile events, it consistently brings in tons of money. Over 300 events happen every year at the Garden, making it one of the busiest places in the world. People can go there right from Penn Station, which is one of the busiest transit hubs in the world, because it's on top of it. Dolan can see how keeping the Garden where it is now will make him money. It's in a great spot. The brand's got a long history and it makes tons of money. If they move, they'd lose out on this great property and the steady streams of income that come with it. There's more going on here than just money, though. Dolan sees MSG as a personal representation of the impact and legacy of his family in New York City. The Knicks and the Rangers play there. Both teams have been owned by the Dolan family for years. In many ways, moving MSG would be a symbolic end to all that. Dolan has already been criticized by the public for how he runs the teams. Many blame him for the team's long-term lack of championships and their anger at the Knicks and the Rangers. He sees the Garden as more than just a business. It's part of his family's history in New York City sports. Moving MSG presents major challenges. While the $7.5 billion redevelopment plan for Penn Station calls for a modernized transit hub, it also involves relocating it from its current spot. Dolan's been consistently opposed to this, citing logistical difficulties of moving such a big building as well as the emotional attachment to the arena. With estimates ranging from $8 to $10 billion, depending on the site, the cost of relocation is calculated at billions of dollars. While the city may offer financial incentives like public funds or tax breaks, Dolan may see this as nothing more than a last resort. On top of that, Dolan has had a big effect on New York City. His company, Madison Square Garden Entertainment, has strong lobbyists, and Dolan's given a lot of money to politics to make sure he's protected. Dolan has a special negotiating leverage point in the arena because of its dubious tax-exempt status, which has let the Garden evade paying property taxes for years. Moving MSG for Dolan isn't just about building or planning cities, it's about power, legacy, and control. Putting it simply, James Dolan wants to keep the Garden's place in NYC's cultural and business life, which is a big reason people don't want it to be moved. The emotional and financial stakes are great. Thus, even if Penn Station needs a reboot, one of the toughest challenges in changing the space will be getting Dolan to relocate the arena. The power struggle. When it comes to Penn Station's future, the fight over its renovation is not just about engineering and design. It's also about politics, business interests, and public pressure. This fight is between the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, MTA, different levels of government, private developers like James Dolan, owner of MSG, and other important groups. All of these groups have a stake in how the station and its surroundings are developed, but their different objectives have made the process difficult and sometimes downright contentious. MTA is at the center of all this because it owns most of Penn's infrastructure, such as the subways and commuter rail lines. The MTA has known for a long time that the station needs to be updated because its narrow hallways and old-fashioned layout make it one of the least useful transit hubs in the world. MTA has suggested a $10 billion budget for a major renovation that would create a new hub that's easier to use. That includes taking down Madison Square Garden to make room for a station that's more open and bright, with a new train hall with a glass dome and easier access to platforms. But Penn Station's MTA plan is not just his or her own. The municipal and state governments have a lot of power over how the project ends up. It's clear that both the state and city want to improve the arena, but their plans don't always line up with those of MTA and the private developers. For instance, state leaders like the governor have made it very clear that they want to rebuild Penn Station from the ground up. But they also need to think about the political effects of closing Madison Square Garden, a historic venue that brings in millions for the city. Private developers like the Dolan family make the problem a lot more difficult to solve. It's very clear from James Dolan's words that he's not ready to give up and let the MTA or the city take over MSG. The Dolan family owns the air rights above Penn Station. They used to have this power to keep a tight grip on the future of the arena. Don Dolan does not want MSG to be moved without a fight. It's a well-known venue that makes a lot of money for his company. The political power of Dolan and MSG make it harder to move the redevelopment project forward. The Dolans have been politically active in New York City for a long time. Their company's full of strong lobbyists who help political campaigns, and because of their power, they've been able to get lots of good deals, like a tax break that allows MSG to avoid paying property taxes for a long time. Dolan's opposition and the possible legal problems it brings is a big problem for the MTA and the other political leaders that actually want MSG to move. Aside from the ownership of MSG, opposition to the redevelopment is another problem it faces. Due to the competing needs of many parties, including private developers, the city, the state, and transit authorities, the decision-making process is not unified. Every group wants to make sure that its own goals are met, whether those goals are a smooth transition for commuters, protecting the region's history, or getting the most money out of new real estate projects. The fight over who will decide what happens with Penn Station's future shows how complicated this project really is. The MTA, the governments, they all want to make Penn Station a modern transportation hub, but James Dolan and MSG are against this, and different groups have different goals, which makes the project very hard. Each player is fighting for control of one of the most important public spaces in the Big Apple. The fates of the station and Madison Square Garden are still unknown. Is New York ready for change? When people argue about what should happen with Penn Station, they can't forget to take public opinion into account. The current state of Penn Station has long angered visitors, commuters, and people that live in New York City. The cramped, dark, and old-fashioned layout of the station made it one of the worst places to catch a train on the planet. A lot of people in New York want a complete makeover for the area around the station to bring life back to it and make their daily commutes better. Some are still against the idea of moving MSG and building a modern, huge transportation hub, but that public opinion is starting to change. Commuters have long complained about Penn Station because they have to deal with crowded platforms, narrow hallways, and confusing signs just to find their trains. The station was built in the early 1900s for a much smaller population. It was meant to be a bottleneck in the city's transportation system, but it's changed over the years. Since more than 600,000 people use the road every day, something needs to be done to make things easier. People are generally unhappy, which is why they very strongly support renovating. This will hopefully fix long-standing issues and make it a more convenient and easy-to-reach hub for tourists. Many think MSG was a good thing for the city and are excited about the idea of replacing it with a station that's more open and full of light. One of the best things about the redevelopment plan is a new green space that will be built where the arena used to be. For people in New York, the idea of turning a very crowded city block into a public park with green grass, trees, and open spaces is very appealing. Building a new park near Penn Station could be a welcome break from the concrete jungle and much-needed green space in a city where it's hard to find and very much valued. The community really wants the green space because it helps with environmental goals and making the city's spaces better. That's why support for it's so strong. If there was a park in the middle of Manhattan, people who live nearby would have a rare chance to enjoy nature without having to leave the city. A lot of community groups, local businesses, and urban designers have responded with great enthusiasm. They believe that this vision of a livelier, more walkable New York could make the area a better place to live and visit for everyone. Many people in New York are excited about the idea of updating Penn Station, but the plan has caused some debate. In light of the estimated $7.5 billion price tag, the project's cost is a big deal for some. Some say that spending so much money on something that the city needs so badly, like affordable housing or social services, might not be the best idea. Lots are going to be skeptical about spending billions on a single infrastructure project, especially one that involves tearing down a famous building like the Garden. They will wonder if the money will be well spent and help everyone. The noise and chaos that this project causes is another source of conflict. The building process will definitely be very annoying for people who live, work, or commute nearby. Penn is one of the busiest transportation hubs in the world, so any renovations will probably cause some trouble while they're being built. People aren't sure if the plan will work because of this uncertainty. Some are worried about the upheaval, and that'll make problems worse instead of better, which could mean that the short-term losses will be bigger than the long-term gains. The future of the $7.5 billion plan. There's lots of unknowns about the $7.5 billion plan to move Madison Square Garden and rebuild Penn Station. One of the most important transportation hubs in New York is supposed to be turned into a modern, useful area with a park, but there are some big problems still. Legal battles between the owner of MSG, James Dolan, and those who want to move the famous arena could delay or stop the project completely. The long approval process and complicated finances, like getting both public and private money, make things even more difficult. Even with all these challenges, redevelopment could still bring on benefits like better transportation and more green spaces, but the outcome depends heavily on Dolan's decision, political negotiations, and legal agreements. If approved, the plan could mark a new chapter for New York's infrastructure, but if the opposition continues, the city might be forced to rethink its plans for Penn Station. For now, the future of this ambitious project is uncertain, and New Yorkers are waiting to see if this much-needed change will ever actually happen. While we wait to see what happens, let us know in the comments what your thoughts on this project are, because we are committed to giving you 2 videos every week. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more visionary builds. Thanks for watching.